moguls have put in place are so specifically targeted at you that they want your attention. They know what you're searching for. They know what you like, and they're after your attention. So in order to be able to move from the agitated mind to the present mind, so this is a different set of programming, we have to learn how to become calm, centered, and contented. And a lot of people say, it's easy for you to say, Greg, wouldn't that be wonderful? And the journey to calm, centered, and contented, let me tell you, it is an uphill journey a lot of the time. Now, most of the things in life that are worthwhile, it's worth putting effort into them. I am not able to wave a magic wand and convert you into calm, centered, and contented. What I am able to do more scientifically is show you a series of steps and help you to arrive at a calm, centered, and contented mind. Now, there's stages to that then, and we'll maybe get time to come back and look at that today. So we can then, let's just move this over, okay? Think about your current programming. So how are you seeing this current world situation? And for the presentation today, it helps me to just narrow it down to say, not only are you in the agitated mind or the content mind, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Now, I grew up in a family where I learned how to be a pessimist. So becoming optimistic has been part of my life's journey, but it's also testimony to the fact that we can change. So for those people who are more pessimistic out there, and again, there's nothing wrong with being pessimistic as long as you accept it and own it, but it doesn't make the world as bright a place. I don't know if as a pessimist, these lambs would have just stayed and come over and greeted me. But the mother, who'd obviously been in the world a little bit longer, the mother of the lambs was clearly a pessimist. She just ran off. The little lambs, though, they sat and we got this amazing picture. Okay, so now my partner, Sam, she laughs when she sees this. She thinks this is the funniest picture ever. So when we think about creating and changing our programs, how can we become, how did we, first of all, create this optimistic person or this pessimistic person? How were these programs formed? And the other question we're going to ask is, how can we be enriching or changing our programming now? So I'm constantly reinforcing this nature of programming. And just so you know, it does sound quite mechanistic and reductionistic. The only reason is because NLP was formed in the 70s when computers had just become the rage. And the whole idea of programming was out there. It was for no other reason. Obviously, as human beings, we're far more dynamic than a simple set of programs. So, the phrase that we're using, because it comes from the originating source of NLP. So, okay, little bit of fun for you. Two things I want to introduce you to, which are subtle aspects of our programming. So when you think about learning something new, sometimes people are like, oh my God, I'm too old for technology, but the only reason we say, oh my God, I'm too old for technology is because that's a program that we're running. That's actually the ego and getting involved and saying, no, remember that program, the program that I learned from my grandmother and my mother and my grandfather and my father, the one where they go, oh my God, I'm too old for this modern stuff. And these things transcend, they just permeate through the years, the sins of the fathers and the sins of the mothers. If we allow ourselves to buy into these ideas, because actually they're not necessarily true. It's just the automation of the mind allows us to buy in such a way for us to begin to believe they're true. So growing, whether it's your vocabulary, learning how to use technology in the form of Zoom, learning a foreign language, learning something like biology, chemistry, maths, or in fact learning about NLP. I'm teaching you aspects of a new language today. And actually what this does is, think about it, it grows you from the borders of your current reality. So your reality begins to expand. Oh my God, this Greg guy's talking about these like new ideas and concepts, and he's using letters and language, and we can begin to get stretched. But this stretch is actually a really good thing, because neurologically what is going on is our brain, which is super malleable, begins to grow. So when we're on the borders, we have to be careful as to whether we're an optimist or a pessimist. The optimist is like, wow, new information, great, let me absorb it, let me learn. The pessimist's more like, oh my God, I've got enough on. Have you not seen how much stuff's on my desk? Do you not know I've got dinner to make for 5 kids? And this constant barrage of pessimistic interpretations as opposed to optimistic interpretations. So growing your vocabulary, and the reason I'm putting this into the presentation is to encourage you to, if something comes up that you think's stretching you a little bit, just take a nice deep breath and think, okay, I'll write it down. You can ask a question. It might take you hearing it a couple of times to get it, but learning anything new, growing your vocabulary, growing any part of your life is pushing the boundaries on you. The reason people get stuck is because they stop growing. And these are even people who grow. And I've been through like massive growth spurts in my life. And then I've stopped growing. What I realize now is the only reason I stopped growing is down to me. It's down to my programming. So the human being that is constantly absorbing, liking new things. And the strange thing is, in ancient times, if you go and look backwards, children were considered to be the slow learners, because it was always a part of culture and society to learn and to grow. And so the adults would continue to learn at a rate of knots, you know, absorbing books, materials, just anything they could get their hands on, you know, studying nature, growing in all these magnificent different ways. The children who are at school, who would be learning in an equivalent way to the way they learn today, they were seen as the slow learners. So somewhere along the line, the paradigms flipped, maybe inside of the language. Oh my God, think of the language I'm too old to. No. I'm 50 years of age. I've been cycling for 10 years. You know, my fastest times, I do 100 miles a week on the bike. I'm faster than they've ever been. My heart rates are lower than they've ever been. My bloods are better than they've ever been. Everything about is this: we can grow, we can change our programming. You know, I'm here hopefully as an example.
Listen to this, George.
And someone to support you. Yeah, get George on. George needs to listen to this. So you're welcome. Come on, George, you're welcome. So the next thing I want to bring your attention to is the subtle aspects of our programming. Now, this is the way the mind hijacks us. I'm thinking, how can I show these beautiful people something simple to give them an example? So look at the image on the right. Now, when you look at it, it's like, well, what do you see? So you see those like incomplete circles. There's 3 of them at the side. And then most people are going to say, yeah, I see 2 triangles. Now, the ghost triangle, the white one in the middle, believe it or not, it doesn't exist. Okay? You're making that up with your mind, and you can go and play with this after. There's lots of things online, download some pictures and some images. But what I'm showing you is this is the automation of the mind that gets you stuck. The mind projects and makes something up, and then we believe that to be real. And that fundamentally causes errors and problems. It's like someone saying to you, do you know Deborah? And me going, yeah, I know Deborah. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. Here's a woman of like many years of depth, experience. I don't know where she grew up. I don't know about amazing relationships. I don't know, I know bits about her business. I don't know everything about it. But what our mind will often do is, yeah, I know Deborah. And it assumes, and it creates the ghost triangle. And now what we do in life is we stop learning about Deborah. We stop receiving her in the moment. So imagine I meet her today, and then I meet her in a week's time. Do you know what? She's a week older, a week more creative. She's a week more into being the genius that she is. She's absorbed a week's more information. Now, if I've created a ghost triangle, I fixed her in time. Yeah, I know. I know. No, I don't know her. And this is why the way we should be is we should start to relax and release and begin to welcome into our lives every moment as a fresh moment, as a new moment. In fact, now it's quite often say it's sad that we actually label things. You know, do you like coffee? And someone says, yeah. It's like, whoa, hang on a minute. How many different varieties are there? How many different flavors? There's like this multiplicity of coffees, but actually we should engage with each one in the moment, because even the water's going to change it. Maybe someone uses milk, someone uses cream, that changes it. So, you know, yeah, give me a cup of your finest and let me just sip it and let me allow all my senses to absorb it. So what I'm saying to you is be warned about the ghost triangle. The mind is creating these ghost triangles all the time. Hopefully that's a nice, simple way for you to get to understand. The mind is constantly, in all situations and circumstances, boom, ghost triangle, interpreting things in a way. It's like if you complete your partner's sentence, you know, it's like, whoa, no, stop. Let them complete their sentences. I know what you're going to say. No. It might surprise you because they've been learning and upgrading. The new version of them's arrived. And again, this is why in some circles, in relationships, the reason relationships begin to break down, because we're like, yeah, I know the ghost triangle of the person. You know, I can limit them in that way. Whereas we should constantly be looking to renew ourselves, invigorate. I'm reading books all the time. I'm meeting new people. I've got projects on. So I'm growing all the time. You know, my partner would say to me, God, every week it's like a different man coming out. I can see some of you smiling. That's the beauty of refreshing the relationship, but it takes all parties to play along with that. What are we doing? We're influencing and affecting our programming. So let's look at programs in a little bit more depth. Okay. So our programs, our realities are processed inside of us through our personal interpretation of events. Now, just slowing that down. So when we engage out there with the things that are going on, let's take this hated COVID-19 scenario. When that comes into our reality, we've got a lot of things that gets processed through. The first one's too complicated for today, but it goes through time, space, matter, and energy, how we see time and process time. The next thing it goes into, though, is our language. You know, what's the language that we've learned over our lifetime? And that is going to be a language that has come from people that have taught us, situations that we grew up in. The next thing is our memories. And this is why memories are so challenging to us, because even though the past's gone, these memories begin to inform us in a way that they fill in the sides of the ghost triangle. And that really is problematic, especially when we're trying to create a contented mind. You know, think about it. If the memory is, you know, I'm originally a Scouser, as probably you can most probably tell. You know, if you've got this thing of, you know, all Scousers are thick. Yeah, well, all right, partially true. I'm a rare exception, but no, joking aside, you know, if we hold something like that as a memory, then whenever we meet someone from Liverpool, even if they've got a first-class degree, they've got a doctorate, we can be infected by these generalizations that fill in the ghost triangle. You know, another example is all Chelsea fans are thugs. So you see someone in a Chelsea hat and scarf because, you know, back in the day, we saw these horrible situations where the fans were doing nasty things, but we carry that with us. So then everyone who's a Chelsea fan fits into this. So these ghost triangles are informed by our memories, as opposed to if we get into the present moment, we receive the present moment as it is. And we're constantly curious. We're constantly unwrapping and uncovering the present moment. We're not allowing these informations from the past to infect us too heavily. decisions that we've made. You know, let's say you made a decision to invest in a business, it didn't go well, and then you decide, oh God, no, I'm never investing in business again. It's terrible. But in reality, you weren't ready probably to invest in business. You didn't have enough information. But now all this information that you've gained from the decision that you made that didn't quite work out for you, that makes you to have a greater possibility that you will be successful in your next business venture. But what do most people do? They look at historic decisions and they decide, oh my God, no, investing in businesses is bad. I'm not doing that anymore. How many times have we stopped ourselves in life because of a previous decision? Oh no, Gene up the road said it was really bad. We shouldn't do that. You know, but think about life. You know, if you go to, we can't go to a pub now, but normally you go to any pub, everyone in there's got an opinion. And so the world is full of opinions. What I'm saying is allow ourselves again to be present, slow ourselves down and unpack, so that the programs that we're running are allowing us to lead a richer life. Our attitudes and also then our values and beliefs. What are the values and beliefs that we inherited? And then once COVID-19 goes through all of these things, you're either an absolute mess because it's like, oh my God, or you're relying on the decisions that other people are making. I hope they'll sort this out for us, most of whom haven't got a clue, which is clearly being proven. But we've then, you know, or we allow ourselves to slow reality down and in fact unpack it. Yeah, we listen to things people are saying, but we remain curious. We put things through these filters, but we're aware that these filters aren't necessarily always serving us. And then we make our own decision in the present moment. And then what happens after the information's gone through, as it says in the bottom there, we then get our outputs, which is our behavior in the world. So how do we then behave? Are we frantically scared because the agitated mind has been hijacked? Or, you know, are we optimistic? Is it like, well, okay, you know, this is a period of retreat. It's a period of introspection. It's a period for stepping back. Or are we pessimistic? Oh my God, the world will never be the same again. Well, the world's never the same one day to the next. We're not. So the world is constantly changing. And therefore, if we're looking outside of ourselves, we're probably looking in the wrong place. Okay. So the formation of our programming comes from between the ages of 0 and 7, family, religion, and culture. And there's a picture in the background of the school I went to between the ages of 11 and 14. And you're probably thinking, oh my God. It was a boarding school. It's got a horrid history. Now, I won't bore you with that, but if any of you are interested, do ask me at another time. But a fabulous building. So, but I'm only putting it there to say between the ages of 0 and 7, it was a junior seminary where young boys go to train to be priests. And so, you know, my background inside of Catholicism, that was forming me. That was informing the beliefs, the values, the attitudes, the decisions. It was informing everything that I was doing. And then obviously the parental influences and the siblings around me and the broader aspect of teachers. But also then the culture, you know, what was happening politically at the time, what was happening economically. And all of these things start to create these ghost triangles unless we're very careful and we realize, no, I'm not going to let these things outside of me completely determine the decisions that I'm making today. So I want you to pay attention to this. This is where it's formed. So quite often now I'll find myself, if I've got a program and it's not serving me. So, you know, one of the things that I study from a psychological point of view is a thing called a personal lie. Can be really helpful. And it's thought now that we have undercurrents inside of our structure. And one of them, which is interesting, is the personal lie. If there was a lie that you've been telling yourself from the earliest point that you can remember in your life, what is that lie? So my personal lie was, I don't belong. So if you can if you imagine, I'd be in situations, and this belief that I had, which was my personal life, was part of my programming, and never felt like I belonged anywhere. So I was always feeling myself being pushed out of situations. So again, we said at the start, bring a problem to this session. When you think about, what's something that's influenced? And another one that I had was nobody loves me. I had a really torrid relationship with my mother. And then you can imagine, as your primary caregiver. But if I'm running nobody loves me and I don't belong, then it's going to create a lot of ghost triangles and a lot of problems. And they're in that programming between the ages of 0 and 7. If we don't get down into the roots and pull it out, it creates havoc. And it actually not only creates havoc, it creates this agitated mind, which we can carry around for a lifetime. So permanent change happens at the roots of our programming. So for those of you that want to overcome the years 0 to 7, you've got to get down into the roots. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine that we had a knitting machine and it's going to knit jumpers for Roots of Life. So it's got the emblem on it, and we're knocking these jumpers out. And for the first 4 years, the machine works brilliantly. These jumpers are coming out. We've got, they're all perfectly colored. They've got the emblem on. And then after 4 years, all of a sudden, the instrument, which is the machine, begins to put jumpers out that's got an arm missing. And Deb's is like, look, no problem. And she goes and she recruits someone that can knit and starts to knit the extra arm onto all of the jumpers. And this, sadly, is the way most of us approach the way that we deal with the challenges in life. We look at the output, which is what is going on out in the world, and then we try to fix what the instrument has produced, which could be, a relationship that's broken down. That's one of these jumpers that's come off with an arm missing. It could be a business deal that's gone wrong, bang, another arm missing off the jumper. It can be so many different things, but as opposed to us going back and working out where the root of the problem is and fixing the instrument, which we're constantly trying to fix these jumpers. So imagine this machine goes on for a year or 2 years or 3 or maybe 10 or 20 or 30. All of a sudden, Debs has had to employ tens of people to repair all these jumpers. Whereas what could we have done? We could have focused on fixing and changing the instrument, which is the thing that is creating the problems in the first place. What is that instrument? That instrument is the mind. So the agitated mind, the agitation outside in the world, the problem that we've got isn't out in the world, it's inside of the instrument. Now, all I can tell you is after, 50 years of age, I've been studying psychology and NLP and all these other wonderful things. I've studied under enlightened masters. I've spent years in India, in ashrams, in caves. I can tell you that until we get to grips with the roots and we fix the mind, we're not going to fix anything, or we're just going to be incredibly busy in the outside world repairing these jumpers. But if you think about all the extra jumpers that we create, they just create more agitation. So not only have we got a problem and we've got an agitated mind, it's getting more agitated by the extra problems that it's pumping out into the world. So what we've got to do is fix the instrument. We fix the machine. We then get magnificent jumpers again with all the arms in place being pumped out. What do we do with the mind? We fix the mind. We get rid of the agitation. And then in getting rid of the agitation, we've got to the root cause of the problem. And in getting to the root cause of the problem, now we can begin to enjoy the programs that we're creating. So let's think about programs and life. And I like to talk about it as finding the eye of the storm, because the old life phase can have been really difficult. And I've emphasized the word now there because the old life phase, it's the past. now. Because every event that ever happens in life, and by the way, it's easy to say this. The first time I saw this many, many years ago, I sat with it and I'm like, yeah, I get that. Because everything happens in the present moment, but we don't really get it. And I didn't get it for many years. But the whole life phase, like people go to the doctor and say, oh, doctor, I've not been feeling well. Can you diagnose me? And the doctor says, yeah, terribly sorry. You've got a cancerous tumor. You've not got long to live. And then it's like, oh my God, I wish I could be like I was back then. And the doctor says, well, no, because if you were like you were back then, that's the reason that you're here today. Because the instrument was already broken. And in the instrument being broken, all of these conditions come to bear on the body. So the old life phases that were past, that you think were better, in fact, were leading up to the present that we find ourselves in now. So the current life phase that we're in, the present now, because again, everything happens in the now. And then we've got this future life phase where we all, get into this habit, projecting a future full of problems that may never happen. It might never occur. So all the emphasis for me is we need to become truly aware of the now, the realization, no situation has ever in the whole of history and humanity ever happened in any other moment other than the now. So another way that people create agitation is they drag the past problems that they used to have into the present moment. And what do? They corrupt the present, they create agitation, disturbs the now. What's that? That's a real serious problem with the machine, a serious problem with the mind. Someone who drags the past into the present. Can that be healed and cured? Yes, it can. But it requires a commitment. It requires you to go on a journey to clear that and heal it. And again, for people who project out into the future, they're also creating agitation in the present because it's an unknown future. Let's face it, like the future is full of an infinite number of possibilities. But if you narrow it down to a few problems, then what you're saying is out of the infinite possibilities, oh my God, these are the only things that can happen. No, this world's full of infinite possibilities. We don't know what is determined in the future. It's, COVID-19 is a perfect example. No one saw it coming. Bang, all of a sudden, right, we've got this new now. So we're still in the now, but the now is now created by this scenario with COVID-19. And a lot of people are like, oh my God. But all those people who maybe were praying, kneeling down overnight, praying for a break, some peace, they wanted time off, have all their prayers been answered? Did God sit there and go, oh, well, I need to think something up here? So all the people who want to pray, I want to give them a break. Well, I've got to do it on a global scale. How can I do that? So, if you want to just be playful with these things, maybe the prayers were answered and, the calmness was brought in that way. So we're constantly bringing back to the now. So therefore our programming is such that we distort the now by the way that we bring the unhealed past into the present. And we also project a problematic future that might never exist. All of those things, where's the root of it? It's back in the agitated mind. We need to move beyond that. So solutions-based program, we've got to fix the root cause. We've said we've got to fix the instrument, which is the mind, clear the mind of all the viruses. I'm going a little bit more quickly just because of time. So step one, we change the instrument. I'm being repetitive because repetition is the mother of all skill. You're more likely to learn. You're hearing this for the first time. So I'm doing that on purpose. Change the instrument, change your mind. And when changing the mind, if we can create mental consistency and certainty, so remember a peaceful, calm, contented mind, if we can create that at the root level, then the now moments that show up, we're going to interact with them differently. If we are in agitation, then whatever shows up is going to create more agitation. Step two, we change then the instrument's outputs. Why? Because, well, the instrument called the mind has been calmed down. And when you calm the mind down, guess what? You change your behavior in every moment. If you're a calm person, if you used to be an angry, pessimistic person, you know, which I could do both of those things historically, I respond very differently than I respond now as a calm, centered person. So we change the mind at the root, we change our behavior. What does that begin to do? It creates behavioral consistency. You know, people will leave comments, oh my God, you know, not know what's going on. Why, how is it you're able to be so calm? It's a blessing. And then step 3, once we've done steps 1 and 2, we've got an integrated instrument, we've got an integrated mind, which actually changes your life. But now we become an optimist, we become content and happy. Now, when we're optimistic and content and happy, does life keep showing up? Yeah, of course it does. Will COVID show? Well, you know, COVID or SARS or Mars or, you know, all these different things, yeah, they'll show up. But would I rather be approaching them as an optimist, content and happy, or would I rather be approaching them through the agitated mind? I think you can all answer that question. Okay, so we're going to do a little group experience just for a few minutes. So wherever you sat, hopefully your environment's quiet and calm. If it's not, that's okay. Just do your best to tune in. And if you've got agitation in the environment, just see if you can let go of it. So what I want you to do is bring back to mind that problem that you've been working through, the problem that you've been looking to solve. Okay. And then what I want you to do, only when you're ready, is I just want you to close your eyes. And you can close your eyes now or close your eyes when you're ready to now. And as you close your eyes, I want you in your mind's eye to just as if you were floating up in the air. And this isn't easy for everyone straight away, but just imagine you were floating up in the air and you were looking down on that problem from above. And as you're there looking down on it, you may find that you've created a new perspective. I don't want you to judge yourself in any way. I just want you to observe who's the you that's down there with that problem. And as you look at the you down there with that problem, if it was a friend of yours, what advice would you give them? What would you be saying to them as a friend? What's a heart-based, centered sharing that you'd be sharing while you're holding the space and communicating? And I just want you to imagine that you're giving that sage wisdom and advice to that friend, which is you down there below you. And now what I want you to do is I want you to float back before the problem ever existed. That's right. Go to a time way, way back when this problem, you probably didn't even know or experience. It wasn't inside of your reality and your world. So float back in time to before the problem existed. And as you're there, just notice what's different about you, knowing that this problem doesn't exist. How are you different? How are you thinking differently? Knowing that you've got the freedom and the space in which that problem just doesn't exist. What are you believing that's different at that time? How do you see yourself that's different? And now what I want you to do is I want you to float up and way out now into the future in your mind's eye. All the way out into the future to a time in the future, again, where the problem no longer exists. Like it could be a day, a week, a month, a year from now, float all the way out. And I want you to float to a time where you've gathered the resources that you need. Maybe you needed the support of people. Maybe you needed to stand on the shoulders of a giant. Maybe you needed some help, financial or otherwise. Maybe certain circumstances just needed to work through. And in the magical words of the Buddha, this too shall pass. So there you are, stood in a place where this is all past, feeling safe and secure out there in the future now, where you've solved the problem. And notice what information you can gain from this perspective as well. And only when you're ready, I want you to take all the information and float back into yourself. That's the information from above you, the information from before the problem existed, and the information when the problem was solved way out there in the future now. And for those of you who aren't getting as much, that's okay. Just sit and be with wherever you're at right now. Take all the information back inside and just notice how it is that you choose to receive these perspectives. And this is you receiving from yourself. And remember I said about the people that are busy being busy. Well, we've just taken a moment to enrich ourselves by giving ourselves different perspectives. So whether something's changed, everything's changed, or nothing's changed yet, I just want you to know that that's okay. And only when you're ready, open your eyes and just be full of gratitude for whatever it is that you received. Maybe you're grateful for something you've heard this afternoon, something that happened before earlier in the day, or you're grateful for an insight or a piece of wisdom that you just received from yourself right now. Maybe you want to write something down or just create a memory peg there for yourself to use later. And this is where we get into the spirit of programming and reprogramming experiences. So one of the things I mentioned earlier, one of the filters is time. And then I've just given you an example of how we can use time in a way to help us to solve problems. See, because the illusion of time, past and future, we can actually use them for our benefit. So the fact that we perceive they exist, we can do things that then we can utilize that can in fact be hugely helpful and in helping us to reprogram our experiences. Okay, so I'm doing a one-day experience. I'm only going to work with 10 people. There's already 5 or 6 on this. If any of you are interested, that's great. I'll give you some contact information in a minute. And we're going to be working with other strategies, just like the simple one we did at the end, so that it's all going to be strategy based, so that by the end of the day, you'll be like, oh my God, wow, I've got all these strategies. And the idea then is things that you can, tools in your toolbox that you can turn to, which will help you to begin to clear your mind up and help you to keep your mind clear. For those people though who really want long-term permanent change, this would be a starting point, either listening to the presentation today. I do a lot of meditation. I do long silent retreats. Every year I do an 11-day silent retreat. That's me going on the retreat myself, not me delivering it. I meditate daily. I do yoga daily. And I'm only telling you these things because the mind, a bit like your teeth, you've got to brush your teeth twice a day to keep your mouth fresh. The mind's the same. You've got to do your mental hygiene. You've got to do the work on the mind in order to keep the mind clear and clean. And not only to remove the agitation, to keep the agitation away. So I will, for those people who come along and attend, I'll look forward to sharing as much as I can on that given day to support you in beginning to understand this even more deeply. We've got to get to the roots. And if any of you saw my bio, the number one problem that we face in the world today is the agitated mind. We see it like running riot throughout the world. And this is people who aren't able to control their thoughts, their focus, and they're just consumed then and taken over. And my quest that I'm passionate about is to come and help to solve this. Okay, and there's the beautiful St. Catherine's. There's a little bit of contact information on there. So you can, if you're interested in doing the one-day course, it will be on Zoom, by the way, obviously because of the current times that we're in, but it'll still be a fantastic experience and everyone will learn a great deal. So there's info at St. Catherine's Retreats. And once we open again, then this is where we'll be inviting everyone to have magical retreats. Again, with what in mind? With calming the agitation. helping people to take retreats, to back off, to silence, to calm, and to bring everything that's wonderful about them back into the world. So I hope you found that interesting and informative. I think I'm on the hour for me, so I'm not going to say any more, and I'm going to hand you back to the wonderful Debs. Thanks for listening. Debs, you're muted.
I would be.
That's a first, isn't it? Debs is muted.
I know. What I was going to say is, before we go, that was a really good, very interesting, and very informative, Greg. Does anybody have any questions for Greg at this point?
I'm getting in front of the screen.
Does anybody have any questions that you want to ask Greg? Deirdre?
Can you be optimistic and pessimistic, fluctuating during the course of the day?
Okay, so a great question. You can, you know, and see, think about the idea of optimism. Optimism is going to keep the sky blue, and it's going to keep the sun up in the sky. Where a pessimist is useful, and it's really degrees of pessimism. You know, you might, if I was asking you to proofread something, for example, it might be good that you can find the faults and the issues, and you know, someone might class that as a type of pessimism. But in terms of actual pessimism, the truth of it is that we actually want to weed it all out, because the more optimistic that we can be in the world, the better the world is. You know, imagine we colour the world with our optimism. So we colour our own life and the lives of others. You can become more pessimistic if, for example, you begin to get tired. But now you might find, all right, so I've got an issue with fatigue. Or as I get tired, I should in fact retreat to silence. So something I noticed about myself was if I found I was becoming really pessimistic, I used to go into elective silence because I didn't want to colour the world or other people with this pessimistic part of me that was coming out.
Thank you.
Okay.
Augusta, did you? Augusta,
Sorry,
do you have a question, Augusta?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about the communication at the beginning. You said that only part of it was language and some of it's body, and I guess tone of voice is the other one. Do you know like what percentages of each one it is? Like how much of it is language and how much of it is body language or tone of voice?
Yeah, I mean the language aspect, Augusta, it's you know it's so much more, because you know it's obviously it's even things like eye movements. You know, you mentioned tone, it's tempo, pace, volume, you know, the aspects of voice. There's so much more detail inside. But the thing, what's cited, and it comes from a specific study, so you have to be very careful, because the study was slanted to say that body language, you know, how we use our gestures and how we move in the world, is the majority of the communication. So voice and words, actually, you know, individual words are language, but how I use my voice is another part. And then the physiology is the bigger aspect. But it's around 80%, it seems to be. So if you were physiologically sound in all your communications and the way you delivered things, then, you know, it's more important that you get how you carry yourself is more important than being a wordsmith. The words are so insignificant in comparison. But I would encourage you as well, it's context specific, because imagine today, it's really quite humorous to me, because normally I would read an audience very accurately, and I would see people nodding this way or frowning. I even read eye patterns. And so, you know, I'm very attentive, very astute in those areas, but Zoom removes all that for me. So now all of a sudden, you could have learned, say, NLP from me, and like Greg said, physiology. And then you phone me going, Greg, I've just done this course with you. Now they've got me on Zoom. No, I can't see anyone. They can't see me. So what I'd say is, and therefore we have to adapt. So now the language in this context becomes so important. So like creating humor at the start. Yeah. So being optimistic. And again, in a very natural way. I'm all for being natural. So, but you see now how important those things become. Whereas if I was to just give you the physiology, yes, in certain settings, physiology is key. If you walk into the room in the right way and you hold yourself in the right way and you sit in the right way, then you are going to make things happen in your world and people are going to know that you're there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else, just very quickly before we end? No, have you all enjoyed it?
Very much.
Yeah, very good.
Nice one.
Greg. So I'll be putting ovation. Thank you, Greg.
Standing ovation. Standing ovation. Everyone stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Hey.
So I'll be putting on a post out on Roots of Life about Greg's contact details if anybody's interested in the workshop. But no, I love NLP. It's a great tool, and obviously we've got the next talk on Monday, which is with Kevin Porter. If anybody's interested, so you know, I know we're in this situation at the moment, but certainly it's definitely something I'm going to go forward with in the future anyway, even out of this. It's a new way, isn't it? And why not? You can get everybody together in just one space and from all over the world.
It's just that Augusta and I need to learn new presentation techniques.
But no, thank you, Greg. I'm sure
thank
everybody's enjoyed it. And
Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
anybody who wants the recording, send me a message. And
if there are questions after the fact, just email them to me. And I'm happy to answer. I'm all for helping people with agitated minds. We need to get the world to be a calmer place from the roots, not by solving the world outside, by solving this.
absolutely. So yeah, have a great weekend, everybody. I'll put all the details, and anybody wants the recording, I've recorded it. And your partner's going to be doing one next Friday, isn't she, Sam?
She is. Yeah, I don't know what she's doing, but she is. Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, the beautiful Sam. You'll love her. She's amazing. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for everybody for coming again, and we'll see you. Hopefully, some of you on Monday.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
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 Bye.